Jen podcast, where we discover how our authenticity is our superpower. I am so excited you've joined me for today's episode. Let's get started. Hey friends, it is Jen Gray. I am super excited about this episode for a couple of reasons. But first of all, it's 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Friday night. And instead of waiting until next week and doing a daytime live like I normally do, I have to get this out. And whenever you have things that impact your life so deeply and you have a platform to be able to share it, I think it's such a gift to be able to just put tools in your hands that have been placed into my hands that have literally changed my life in so many ways. So if you are living a life, first of all, maybe that you're just not proud of, and I'm not talking like the whole thing, not like doom and gloom, but maybe there's an area of your life, maybe it's a relationship in your life, or it's a business in your life, or it's a pattern of attitude or a mindset in your life, and you wish it was different. You wish there was change in some area. You're who I'm talking to. This is going to be a short episode. I want it to be very practical in what you can literally do tonight to begin a forward motion into a direction that you are proud of. And if you guys are familiar with Mel Robbins, she has like the 5-second rule, and she has the high five habit. And so many of those things are so pivotal in creating change. Right? When you do something different, you do something intentional, to just pause for a second and move into a different direction. So like those work for so many people, I'm going to give you another tool in your toolbox of life that has literally helped completely change who I am and where I'm headed. And it's called the look in the mirror rule. And first of all, I want you to think about it. So we look in the mirror every day, right? Every time you brush your teeth, if you're a woman, you put on your makeup, you're looking at yourself in the mirror. But I want you to think about it. I don't know about you guys. I know like if I'm like putting on mascara, putting on eyeshadow, then, I'm like looking at my eyes. But when I look in the mirror, I'm not like looking in the mirror. Like looking into my eyes in the mirror. In fact, it's super awkward. Like just to be straight up honest, just to actually like look at yourself in the mirror. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. And I want you just to like pause there. And I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. And the first round of questions I want you to say is like, are you proud of you? Like, look at the eyes that are looking back at you. And this isn't self-sabotage, right? We're going to get to the other side of it. But we have to deal with this first. And something I'm going to say over and over again is ownership is the pathway to change. So when you're looking at the mirror, you're like, you know what? I'm not proud of this. Like, I don't love this about myself. And the reason I know this is powerful is because March 2023 was a time in my life where I looked at myself in the mirror. And I did not recognize the two eyes that were looking back at me. And for the first time in my life, I said, you know what I could do? I could blame every person in my life that's caused pain. I could be the victim. Y'all, I could give you a sad sob story, right? Could we all not write a sad sob story? We can laugh about it, but you know that it's true. We could all write that. And I don't take away from the pain of your story. Please don't hear that. I have so much empathy for the pain that you've gone through. But here's what I want you to know is that pain does not have to hold you back. In fact, it can teach you so much. And I'm not going to go in and say that, I'm like proud of the pain. No, the pain caused pain. Like there's deep hurt. But what that pain also does project me forward into a direction that I only could have gone had I experienced that pain. And I know that you can agree with that. Right? When you like hindsight's 2020, like 100%, especially when you look back on really painful situations. So for me, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, Jen, like what the heck? Like this isn't the legacy that you want to live for your kids. Like stop fighting for something that's like not even real. Maybe for some of you, you look at your social media and you're like, oh man, like I wish my life looked like that. Like I was the person going live on social media all the time, talking about financial freedom, talking about finding love, and talking about being happy, and talking about all of these things that made my life seem so real. And there are a lot of influencers out there that will talk about like speaking things into existence, right? Speaking it like it happened. And I believe there is so much power in dreaming big and going towards things. But I know in my own life that speaking a life that I wished I had caused me to live a life that I was not proud of, because I kept speaking things in the future that were going to happen instead of actually living in the reality of where I really was. Right. And like I could be so forward focused that I had lost sight of the right now. And so just to give you here's what I want you. Here's why I'm going to tell you hard parts of my story. You know why? Because I want you to be like, well, I'm not that bad. Perfect. Because guess what? If there's hope for me in bringing change, then you can recognize with me that there's even more hope for you for change. Because y'all, I was headed in a very, very, very destructive direction, all based on pain that I had experienced. And I took my pain previously and I had used it as like this badge of honor of like, I am a victim and I am gonna just like live in that pain and hurt people, you guys. And sometimes when we're hurting, the person that we hurt the most is ourselves. Because you know what we do? We literally grasp onto things that aren't good for us because we don't know what's good for us when we're in a hurt stage. What we know is we become codependent, right? You find someone else that you can help and you give your whole life to someone else or for something else, or fill in the blank of what we do in times and seasons. And those are the things that I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. And it can be different for all of us. For me, I was not proud of the legacy I was leaving for my kids. I was not proud of decisions that I was making personally. I was not proud of how I was allowing myself to be treated and talked to. I was not proud of how I was faking it till I was making it, essentially. I was not proud of relationships that meant the world to me, that I let completely dissolve. And guess what? I looked in the mirror and I said, Jen, are you proud of who you are? Got a tattoo in February of that same year that said live for legacy. And it was again another big wake up call of like, what kind of legacy are we living for, y'all? Like we only get one life. This isn't like the dress rehearsal. I say this all the time. But think about like what kind of legacy are you living for the people around you? And some people say, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does it mean live for legacy? I think it's amazing when we can live a life that impacts people even beyond us living. I think that's incredible. Because again, it's not that our names are known, it's that our impact continues to impact other people, right? If your pain could be used to save someone else from pain, how crazy cool is that? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. I think that's so, so cool. So when you look in the mirror, you're saying, am I proud of who I'm looking at? Ask yourself, are you settling? Like, do you have peace? Are you living a life that you would want? Here's the kicker. Listen, are you living a life you would want for your own children? If you're a parent, well, that will hit like deep. But guess what? I'm not here to like give you all of this. This will like send you like rocking in a corner. Like, but here's what you could do different with this information. If you look in the mirror and you're looking in the mirror with one goal, the one goal is to be gut level honest with yourself so that you can do something different and move forward. Y'all, literally. So think how crazy this is. So I feel like I have like part A and B of my life. You guys may be able to resonate with that. You know, maybe it's like, you know, you went through a divorce, or maybe you had a job shift or a change, or maybe you had a death in a family, or something in your life feels like a pre this and post this. And so for me, it was 2019 when I went through a divorce. Before that, I was working at a church and I was doing girls ministry, which means I was speaking on stages, I was planning events, and y'all, honestly, I was living my best life as far as career goes. I was at the peak of my career. I loved what I did, but there was a disconnect. And so for so long, I prided myself on compartmentalizing my life on this part of Jen and this part of Jen. And then later on, it was this is something I'm going to talk about, and this is something I'm not going to talk about. Like, y'all, I have a hair disease. Listen to this. Listen to how crazy our minds can work if we aren't looking ourselves in the mirror and choosing to be honest with ourselves. Y'all, If you listen to other podcasts, I go into more detailed story of it. But I lived a lie for decades because I was so ashamed of a condition that I developed because of trauma in my childhood. I claimed one diagnosis when the fact was my trauma had caused me to like pull out my hair. It was insane. But even in that, I did not feel the freedom to be who I was, to get the help that I needed, to align with the people that I needed to align with. Why? Because I was so convinced that my true story would never be good enough. Maybe you've been there. And I want to tell you that when you look at that with a different front reframing and you change your mindset around parts of your story that you're not proud of, I could give you a list 1,000 miles long of things I'm not proud of. Why focus on that? But here's what you can focus on. Who do I want to be right now moving forward? That's all we can change, y'all. And guess what? In that, it caused me to have to take major ownership of choices that I made with my own mind, with my own decisions, that now I was reaping the repercussions of and I was living in the consequences of. Maybe that's what it is for you. So that's like the first step. The first step is look into your eyes and ask yourself, am I proud of the person looking back at me? But listen, here's the second part of it. Sounds a little bit like the first part. Look into your eyes. Here's what I want you to do, y'all. This is so powerful. Do not think this is cheesy. Do not think this is, or here, if you do, I'm telling you, you're going to miss out. I want you to look at yourself in your eyes and I want you to say, I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of healing. I am worthy of being authentically my entire self for people who will love me for me. I am worthy of living a free life. No more double life. No more the life you put on social media versus the life you live with your kids, the life you live with your spouse or in another relationship. Y'all, there's so much power when you can wake up every day and the person on social media is the same as the person in real life. And do you know how I know that's possible? Because it's taken me 41 years to get there, where I can wake up and the people in my life are genuine. They know Jen, and they can love me or they can leave me. I know my worth, and I know that I'm worth loving well and being loved well. I know my kids are worth having a present mom and not being mentally annihilated so she can't emotionally show up for her own children. I know that. Do you know how I know that? Because I've lived it. What is that for you? And you need to write it down and look in the mirror and remind those two eyes that you are worth loving. And lastly, you are created for greatness. Y'all, we are created on purpose and for a purpose. So if you are just willy-nilly in life and you're not really doing anything and you feel like your life is a waste, then guess what? Maybe that's the wake-up call that you need. Maybe somebody needs to tell you that people need your word, your story in their life. People need you to be all of you so that you can impact them. I don't care if you have a 9 to 5 and you're a secretary somewhere. Guess what? You can light up people's life around you. So when you look in the mirror and you remind yourself of that you're worth fighting for. And here's what you got to be ready to do is to take ownership for every single thing that you want in your life. If you want peace, you guys, you have to eliminate the people and the alignment and the relationships that do not cause peace. Does that mean you're going to have a job that you love doing what you do every day? That's not what I'm saying. That's not it. That's so different. But you can have peace in knowing, like even that, I completely switched agencies in doing what I was doing in a season that I needed some kind of stability, but that agency did not align with who I was to my core. And it's like, even when I felt like everything had been annihilated, right? Like I left a relationship, I left a job, I left a business partnership, I left everything. And now all I was left was this pile of rubble called my life that I had to rebuild piece by piece by piece by piece. And the way that I started rebuilding it piece by piece is doing exactly what I'm telling you to do today. And there's a whole lot that comes after this conversation on what do you take. And listen, y'all, it's not going to change overnight. Now, maybe you need to leave a relationship overnight. Y'all, I did that, right? Like literally overnight, I said, it's done. Because the two eyes looking back at me deserved peace. And that was not giving me peace. It was not giving my children peace. And what I mean by peace is just this like tranquility of knowing that you are surrounded by the people that are going to elevate you. Now, I'm not talking about just yes people, but people that are headed in the same direction that you're going, maybe different lanes. But man, these are people who are positive. And I want to do a little, I've talked to you before, and said people accuse me of toxic positivity. And listen, this is serious. Maybe the toxic positivity in your life is that you're pretending and putting on this smiling face online and talking about all the wonderful things that you're doing or that you believe or that you want to teach somebody else. But the mask is covering a life where you are being sucked dry and you are empty. Time out from the lies, y'all, and fill up your soul and heal from that and be really, 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 really honest about where you are and who you are. That's why I started this podcast. I didn't start this podcast originally. I was going to wait until I made multiple six figures, just like I was making before. And I'm like, I'm going to tell every woman how they can do that, until I realized my power is not in my financial. I will make way beyond what I've ever made before. And I'm on the trajectory to do that. But guess what? That's not the value that I want to give you. The value that I know that I found is being able to look in the mirror and not be proud of the person who's looking inside there, and finding and realizing that God can give you hope in a way that only He can. And He can bring healing and peace and restoration to parts of your life that you may never have believed there would be healing and restoration and hope in before. And maybe for some of you, it's taking that first step. It's getting off of this podcast. And it's doing what's really, really, really hard. It may take you a couple of times, and let the tears flow if the tears need to flow. And look at yourself in the eyes. And first, remind yourself that you are worthy of living a legacy you're proud of. And second, to remind yourself you are worthy of being the same person on the screen, off the screen, all the places. And you can do that. But I'm just going to be not all butterfly and roses. There's going to be some hard days, but you're strong enough. And listen, here's the hope in that. What's the other option? Like, do you want to keep living like you're living right now? I know you don't. So what I'm telling you is that there's another way. But you got to own it. And you got to believe that change can happen. And then you got to take action. And you got to get rid of the toxic in your life. Get rid of things that don't align with your core values. What are your core values? Go and listen to other podcasts I have on that. Mine are kindness, empathy, and excellence. Everything I do, I want to connect with people, and I want to do it in the most empathetic, kind way possible. But ultimately, I want to show up genuinely as who I am. And I will tell you guys, the people that I have in my life right now are more genuine than I've ever had in my entire life. My relationships, even with my own family, are more genuine than they've ever been before, because I don't have to be anybody but myself. And there's so much power in that. And lastly, I just want to remind you guys as I close in this episode, if you found any value in this, would you do me a huge, massive favor? Would you leave a 5-star review? Would you write a little snippet about what added value to you? And lastly, would you just share it? The only reason the podcast exists is to add value to you and those you're connected to and those they're connected to just add a mindset and shift our lives to live a life of greatness. But ultimately, how do we live a life of greatness? It's living in our authenticity. That is our superpower, you guys. Stripping away all that's not us and living as who we genuinely are, the good, the bad, the flaws, everything in between. And lastly, I love you. I may not even know you. I may not even have met you, and that may sound insane. But listen, you guys, we have people across the universe who hate people for absolutely no reason. I will choose to love you for absolutely no reason. And then when we meet each other, I get to find out the millions of reasons there are to love you. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. And again, if you've had value, please share this. And I love you. I'll see you guys soon.